And so we are joined now by Adam Kokesh to talk about the march by the troops for Ron Paul and the effect it's had. Thanks for joining us, Adam.
Hey, my pleasure.
So give us your overall impression of the event, how many people turned out, and let's talk about the various factors of media coverage on this, because I think it's become significant.
Sure, no, I appreciate that. And it has become really significant because what we saw yesterday was just the warm-up, just the start for Veterans for Ron Paul 2012, because the message of the event was Ron Paul is the choice of the troops. And if the Republican Party isn't willing to listen to that message, if we can't get Ron Paul the nomination, we can't ensure that he is our next commander-in-chief, then it might all be for naught. And so we are going to be marching on the Republican National Convention in Tampa Bay later this year. What we did yesterday was blow a hole in the military-industrial complex and the establishment. And I apologize for my voice being a little rough here, but we had an incredible time with over 400 troops that marched in that formation, active duty soldiers and veterans. We also had several squads from Fort Meade that were there from the intelligence community within the military who were in civilian attire and in their attempt to observe the regulations to the T, only participated as observers alongside the formation. But we had a lot of active duty guys marching there with us, so we were very grateful for that. But like I said, we blew a hole through this thing that a lot of other veterans and active duty troops are going to be following us through. There were a lot of people announcing their support internationally for this. Guys and gals at bases overseas made videos to promote this event. So now, since we did something in a month and a half of preparation and planning with just two guys, myself and Nathan Cox, when we started this thing, and we ended up with, like I said, somewhere between 400 and 500 in this formation and thousands that would have been there if it wasn't for the warning from the military, maybe if we had had a little more help from the mainstream media. But when we go in Tampa, we go march in Tampa, we're not starting with two veterans. We're starting with thousands. We're starting with over 500 that were there yesterday that were willing to show up, to do the work, to get the word out, to support Ron Paul. Now we've got 6 months. It looks like we're coming to a brokered convention after the first round of voting in Tampa Bay. Mitt Romney is most likely not going to be the nominee, and all of those delegates at the convention are going to be unbound delegates at that point. And for the second round of voting, they're going to get to vote their conscience. And we're going to be there as Veterans for Ron Paul 2012 surrounding the convention. We're going to be marching on the RNC. And if they want to disregard the voice of the troops, if they want to say they support the troops, but we're not going to listen to them, they're going to have to do it to our faces in Florida.
Well, you mentioned it in passing, and I know our InfoWars readers know who check the website every day, but other people may have missed it. They sent out a memo warning people not to show up in uniform at this event, trying to intimidate them out of their free speech and their right to political expression. Why is the system so afraid of troops coming together in support of Ron Paul? Maybe it's an obvious question.
Well, there's one thing in particular about what we did yesterday that I think particularly discredits the entire paradigm of our current foreign policy and the strategy of policing the world and liberal nation building in Iraq and Afghanistan. And that is that when we got to the White House, we did an about-face and a symbolic repudiation of that foreign policy to turn our backs on the White House and President Obama. But at that point, we held a flag-folding ceremony and held a hand salute to a folded flag for as many seconds as troops who have committed suicide while Barack Obama was their commander-in-chief. And that alone, the fact that those statistics are in record numbers right now, the troops are coming home and not just getting out and committing suicide, staying on active duty, and as Barack Obama is their commander-in-chief, committing suicide, taking their own lives in desperation because of their role in our foreign policy. It's not just the strains of repeated deployments. It's coming home and not being able to say that the buddies you saw get blown up by IEDs died for a good cause. And because of that, we got that email that was sent out by a Navy attorney just a few weeks or a few days before the event. We're really grateful for that. Like I said, we were cruising around all the bars, strip clubs, pawn shops, and tattoo parlors here in the D.C. area trying to collect all the active duty emails one at a time, and we're having a hell of a time of it. But this Navy attorney saved us all the work and sent out the email to promote our event. He even included the Facebook event page link in there. So, if anything, I think that helped. But more importantly, a lot of the guys who are on active duty, like Corporal Jesse Thorson, who spoke at the Ron Paul event in Iowa, after he was cut off by CNN's live feed, mysteriously going out after saying Israel could take care of herself and we shouldn't be starting a war with Iran. Well, there are guys like that saying, screw it. It doesn't matter. You just drew the line in the sand, and we know what side we're on. We're on the side with Ron Paul. We're on the side of peace. We're on the side of freedom. We're on the side of defending America. And it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that the people who are willing to put their lives on the line to defend this country want a commander-in-chief who's going to be decisive, who's going to put America's security first, and who is only going to send us into harm's way with a clear mission where we can go win a war and come home, or as he would call it, a constitutional declaration of war. And the only candidate that even comes close to measuring up to that standard is Ron Paul.
The only one who comes close. And what you said sounds like a strong statement based on the way things have been going for decades, but it ought to be just common sense. Of course, it has to be a constitutionally declared war with a clear mission. I mean, just common sense. Now, it's worth mentioning that ABC News covered your rally. The Veterans for Ron Paul rally at the White House was their headline. And they reported, I guess by accident, as so many Ron Paul accidents happen in media coverage, that only dozens showed up. And then they got hundreds of comments pointing out how it was not dozens, it was many hundreds of people. And they were forced to retract and print a correction. Got it here. Update: a previous version of the blog posted incorrectly listed the number of attendees at the event, and they, of course, regret the error. The system is scared, but I think it's all just breaking through. I think it's too late.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, we blew a hole in this thing, and a lot of people are going to be marching through behind us. But as you pointed out, ABC covered the event. Now, when most people hear ABC News, they don't go, oh, yes, they have a blog, don't they? Because I think they also have a TV network, and they didn't provide any video coverage whatsoever of what was obviously a very visual presentation, a very visual event. They didn't do that. We got that story picked up by Drudge. We're very grateful for that. That mainstream token of support was picked up and was carried in the story in the news of the day. But it was really, if anything, token coverage. And as you pointed out, dozens. I mean, we were 8 squads across, 8 squads by about 50 deep. We're working on an exact count right now, but clearly it may be a little over 500, but between 400 and 500 for this formation. So to say dozens is an obvious slam and an attempt to downplay this event and to try to disenfranchise the voice of the troops, who we know have overwhelmingly supported Ron Paul in terms of campaign contributions, having received more than all other candidates combined from active duty. It's this inconvenient little fact that the mainstream media doesn't want to acknowledge because it doesn't fit in their paradigm.
But I think that's breaking too, Adam, because I know you've personally been covering that for months. I think you may have been among the first to at least take it into the national conversation. And here it is from today, or rather yesterday's news, Defense News: Obama-Paul lead in defense contributions. Of course, Ron Paul has even more than Obama. And I think that media dam is breaking too. People are having to acknowledge what's happening. And I would imagine troops are even more upset than ever about our crazy foreign policy with Iran, Syria, the prospect of World War III all on the table.